Alright, welcome everybody. This is just a basic arts and sciences tournament basics class, learning how to judge in a tournament and be competitive in a tournament, and then just some general things, just kind of a general overview of all the arts and sciences because we have a lot of noobs and we're working on that. So, to start, I'd just like to go around, have everybody introduce yourselves, and tell me what you hope to get out of this class.
I'm Jangly, and I actually kind of want to start judging ANS.
I'm Renna, and I have been wanting to enter a lot more into the contest and judge when I can. I just want to get more involved.
I'm Crystal, and I'm the noob. I want to enter more into ANS.
Okay, I am Alicia, and I'm somewhat of a veteran, and I think that I still have things to learn.
I'm Yoshi, and I want to become less clueless about ANS.
You get it, Fitz?
Oh, I'm not in this class.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, I don't know anything about ANS.
Oh, okay.
I'm Ember. I just want to actually start feel comfortable about judging.
I'm Lyriel, and I just want to learn more.
He's Xander.
He's good pants.
He's cool.
Pyro, and just want to learn to judge and be able to enter more stuff into different categories.
And I'm Breeder, and I'm giving the class. We have a couple of our more experienced craftspeople here, so I wanted to kind of get a feel from them why you guys started in ANS, and what do you feel is your best area, why you started, and what keeps you going in ANS. So we'll start with you, and then Fitz is going to get roped in, and then also.
Well, before I started Amcard, I was making garb, costumes, such things with fabric. So when I got dragged into Amcard kicking and screaming by my husband, it made perfect sense to start making garb. Although over the years I've discovered that there's more and more stuff in Amcard with the arts and sciences that I can do, that I am learning to do, and it's a lot of fun.
It's because it's just everything that I do. And my strongest area? ANS.
No, strongest area in ANS.
ANS.
Said I want a cake made by you next tournament.
Yeah.
ANS minus food. ANS minus food.
So I'm Breeder. I love ANS just because I like to look sexy and make other people look sexy. Garb is my strong. We're going to go over the category, and then we're going to give some examples and talk a little bit about how you would judge each category. So start with Jane.
2D art, sketches, drawings, paintings.
Okay, so in 2D art, sketches, drawings, paintings, there isn't really anything else in 2D art.
Scroll work.
You can enter
Scroll work.
item as to the art.
Yeah, you could do that. You could be creative and then enter like a cake, the flat cake as 2D art. Anybody else have any other ideas
I
of other
did a
things you could
Ponzi.
enter? Yeah.
I did a yarn interpretation of Story Night.
Yeah, see? Something cool like that. Needlework could technically be in 2D art. It also has its
Oh,
own.
it wasn't needlework. It was just yarn glued onto a piece of paper.
Okay. There you go, 2D art.
Creating color,
Okay. Basically 2D art, unless you're like an art major, you're not going to have a whole lot in. You're going to generally judge it based on the overall appeal, the overall look of it, how complex it is, those kinds of things, if they messed up here and there.
3D art, sculpture, ceramics, and models.
Sculptures, ceramics, and models. So ceramics are like, jugs and bowls and all those kinds of things. These ones I generally judge on if they're symmetrical, if they look like they were well done, if there's pieces that are attached to it that look like they're going to fall off, obviously that's going to get less of a score. The way that they decorate it, those kinds of things. One of the cool things that I've seen with models is we had Burke do a whole little scene, little castle, built it all up, painted it. It was really cool.
The 3D art doesn't need to be put in a kiln and fire blazed.
does not need to be put in a kiln, fired, and glazed. That's a good question. An unfinished piece, depending on what it is. Obviously, if it's pottery and it's unfinished, that's going to get a lower score. But if it's still a good piece, a good solid piece, and they just didn't do that portion, right.
I've entered in.
There's other things.
I've entered in stuffed dragons that I've created, which are made of yarn or fabric or whatever, because that is three-dimensional.
As long as it's a 3D entry, it's art, but it's in 3D. For instance, she did some crochet Mario things, and we would have put those into 3D art.
See, it's compositions. 5 pages or less. Personal histories, short stories, other fictional compositions. You must have 5 copies.
Okay, that's the big thing. Whenever you're entering into arts and sciences and you're doing any kind of writing or singing or dancing, you need to have 5 copies of whatever it is that you're performing. For instance, when you're doing poetry, which is further down the list, you have to have 5 copies of what it is so that you can have one for each judge, at least in the Desert Winds. That's pretty self-explanatory. Basically, you kind of just judge it on grammatical errors and the creativity and how well it flows and so on and so forth. We've all been in English class, so...
Factual writing, 5 pages or less. Essays, how-to articles, other factual writings. Must have 5 copies.
Again, you have to have 5 copies. Excuse me, this is going to be like, I do a research on something in history that really interests me, and I write a paper on it, or I want to... Right, how to make Hakama pants, those kinds of things, tutorials, how to do those kinds of things, as long as they're written. Not so a video tutorial would not go into factual writing, obviously.
Poetry. 5 pages or less, poems, songs, free verse, performed or not. Must have 5 copies.
Okay, so one really important thing about poetry, it does not have to be written by you. You can perform something that Shakespeare wrote long time ago, and you're judged on the performance, not the writing. You can perform it. You can have the poetry that you wrote, and you don't have to perform it. Obviously, you're going to get a better score if you perform your own poetry, as opposed to not.
Construction armor, legal Amgard armor, judged on construction appearance and effort.
Okay, so everybody's seen armor. The more complex it is, the more effort was put into it. If you just do a simple set of padded armor, nothing special about it, no frills, it's going to get a lower score than obviously something where you took the extra time and you hand embroidered your personal symbol into it or something along those lines. It needs to look period, right? Even if it's not out of period materials, it needs to look period.
G, construction passive, helmets, chests, furniture, judged on appearance, quality, and originality.
Okay, so passive constructions. These are things like our thrones that we have. Helmets, which are not even required in our game, chests, crowns. There's lots of different things that could be passive constructions. A bowl could be used as a passive construction that you maybe made. So one thing to keep in mind is in A&S, things don't have to necessarily fit into one category. They can fit into more than one category. And where you put it is going to help you maybe be more competitive. And we'll go over that in a minute.
And if you're not certain which category it goes into, normally it can fall into passive construction.
Construction active. Amp-guard constructs with important moving parts. Crossbows, siege engines, etc.
Okay, so active constructions. These are things like you said, crossbows, siege engines, little miniature siege engines up all the way up to, you built a thing that'll throw tons of throwies onto the field. The important thing there is the important moving parts section. So you can't just put a disc-shaped bowl that has little twisty thingies on it. That's not active construction. Those are not important moving parts. A construction shield. Legal Amp-guard shields judged on safety, originality, and appearance. Safety is the big one. You need to make sure that it's safe. It can come on the field. It's not going to hurt anyone. If it's not safe, I'll generally dock it quite a few points. Then originality. If it's really cool, it's really different. That's always a good thing. Obviously. And then the appearance has got to look good. When you see it from far away, do you go, ooh, that's cool. The awe factor.
What about a shield that's not meant to be Amp-guard legal? Where does that go into?
Unique weapon, probably. Or passive construction.
Construction weapon?
Yep.
Legal Amp-guard weapons, they're judged on safety, then originality, and appearance.
Again, pretty much the same thing as the shields. Make sure it's safe, make sure it's good for our game, make sure if it has some originality, some different, really crazy different thing that they somehow made safe, that's always worth extra points. And then obviously if you can see it across the field and go, wow, that's an awesome Class.avi something or other over there, then you're going to get more points.
Construction unique weapon may or may not be a legal Amp-Guard weapon, judged on creativity and skillful execution of design of elements in a fantasy or science fiction-based flavor.
Okay, so unique weapon is a new one, and so we added recently the unique weapon to our corpora. This is just like, if you can make this really awesome looking weapon, but you just can't make it look, or you just can't make it look cool while also being legal, you put it into this weapons, or this category. So like court swords, if you were able to forge your own blade and enter it, that would be in a unique weapon category. Right, something carved out of wood, maybe a sword that was carved out of wood. The big thing with this is it's judged more on the creativity and the skillful execution of design. So how well it was done, the creativity, the different design, and the elements need to be fantasy or science fiction based.
Dancing, now, with or without musical accompaniment. Period pieces or original compositions with an Amp-Guard theme. 5-minute time limit.
So this is going to be some of your bardics. You can sing while you're doing your dance. It can be a period or an original piece, so you can just do, you can make something up, or you can research a medieval dance. It does have that 5-minute time limit. That's something really important to note. It does not have to have the musical accompaniment, so you can just go out there and dance.
Cooking beverage, wine, beer, cordial, ciders, etc.
So I wanted to add into this, it says all of the obvious alcoholic ones, but you can make soda pop from scratch. You can make all kinds of different things. You can make your own apple juice. All those different kinds of things, and that's gonna raise the level. If you can make it all from scratch, that's gonna get a higher score than something that, say, you went to the store, you bought yourself some soda pop, and you mixed it with Tampico and something else because it's some recipe that you always do. While that might turn out tasting really well, less complex than, say, the homemade stuff.
Cooking food. Any food not prepared in an oven.
Okay, any food not prepared in an oven. And I'd like to go over both of these.
Dutch oven count?
Yes. Depending. Yeah. Dutch oven, I would say, if you cooked it in a Dutch oven, if it seems like it was baked, then you put it into baking goods. Otherwise, put it into cooking. Good question. What I wanted to note is with both of these two categories, you need to make sure that you have enough utensils for your judges. Make sure there's enough cups if you're doing beverages. Make sure that there's enough plates. Make it look as fancy as you can, because presentation is key. So cooking food is any food that's not prepared in an oven. So we're on the next page.
Cooking, baking, cakes, pastries, baked meats, casseroles, etc.
Okay, so Julie is really awesome at baking cakes. What are some things that you would look for if you were judging it?
My biggest thing is presentation. If you're going to bake a cake, don't bring it in the pan, you bake it in, take it out, present it well, bring enough plates, forks for individual judges, and make sure that the sizes of the cake is in this huge mongo piece. They're judging one bite. You need to have it something to where, and it's sheltered, so that it's not going to be dried out. So you just have to think of all those things, because we're not in an environment that is not open to the air. You want to make sure it's protected from bugs, all that stuff. So. I also make a list of my ingredients. So they go from a box cake to a scratch cake. If it's an original idea, if you doctored up the recipe.
Garb accessories, any item used to enhance garb, but not garb in and of itself, such as hats, cloaks, pouches, gloves, belts, etc.
Okay, so garb accessory is just all this extra stuff that's not really garb itself that we use. So obviously, like a cloak, a slough coat, those kinds of things are all considered garb accessories, pouches, belts, gloves. It can be difficult to kind of decide where something fits. For instance, a really nice cloak could be entered as court garb as opposed to garb accessory. And the way those two categories are judged will determine, and the strengths of your item will determine where you should put that particular item.
Garb, court, includes all garb not used on the battlefield.
Okay, so court garb. It's the fancy stuff. It's where you spend hours and hours putting the little lines on your doublet. It's the slip stitching and the blind hems and the satin, the expensive materials.
Hours and hours of unripping
Hours,
and the tears.
yeah.
Bleeding on it.
Its whole purpose is to be pretty, and it should be judged that way. The next one is field garb. So that's any garb that's intended for use outdoors or on the field. Your tunics, your battle dresses, your tabards, your just kind of the stuff that we wear day to day in Amtgard. And all that stuff is all judged on, specifically all of the garb categories are going to be judged on how clean the execution was, are your seams finished, is everything hemmed, how complex is the item, was it, the aesthetics, is it aesthetically pleasing, does it look nice, is the person that it was made for, do they wear it well, does it look like it's what it's supposed to be?
Monster garb. We're a monster garb? Alright, includes all garb meant for the portrayal of monster classes during the battle game or quest scenario.
So monster garb is kind of a special one. A lot of times you'll attach, weapons to it. At this last past Salt Wars, we had a giant spider costume, and it was all done up, and it had swords coming off of it. Hydra costume. There's lots of different just
Unicorn.
monster garb things that you can obviously portray monster classes. So you're going to go by originality, and does it look like what it's supposed to be? If it's a giant spider garb and it looks like a blob, then it probably is not so good. So a lot of that's going to be in how you name your item. So if it's a giant blob garb and you name it giant spider garb, then you're going to get a lower score because
Heraldry, favors, banners, and flags, judged on originality, creativity, and effort.
Okay, so heraldry, one of my favorites. We have heraldry all over the place. We have heraldry, kingdom heraldry, local park heraldry. Everybody has a personal symbol. Organizing those things, there's a whole nother world out there to organizing heraldry and figuring out what the symbolism means and everything. When you enter it, I find it helpful to describe what it is and why you put the things in there that you put in there. You're going to get a higher score if you explain. That's some above and beyond extra research that you can do to kind of buff up your heraldry piece.
Instrumental music, no vocal accompaniment. 5-minute max.
That's just if you have a violin and you're playing Beethoven's Fifth Symphony and you play it really masterfully, obviously no singing accompanying instrumental music.
Needlework, crochet, knitting, embroidery.
Okay. And she's also really good at that. So give us some things to look for when you're embroidering.
And the snood she's wearing.
So what are some things you look for when you're judging?
Loose threads, even tension, how well the colors hold up if they're bleeding from one thing into another. But yeah, a big part of it is tension. Because if you have it where it's tight in one area and it's loose and falling apart in the next, it's not going to hold up very well.
Is hand embroidery judged differently than sewing machine embroidery?
Yes. At least I would, in my opinion.
Judges judge them differently on a personal basis.
Yeah. Because I would say that machine embroidery is definitely difficult. I don't know if I personally would enter that as a separate, like, needlework embroidery thing. I would definitely, put it on garb, some other sort of thing, and then judge it as part of that. You can judge it separately. There are things that you can do to mess that up just as well as anything. So that's really dependent upon where the artisan wants to put it.
Jewelry. Should have an Amtgard theme. Rings, cornets, necklaces, knights, chains, etc.
Okay, so just jewelry overall. I know you do jewelry stuff, right? So give us some stuff that you would look for. What makes a good jewelry piece and a bad jewelry piece?
If it's going to fall apart within 2 wearings because of how the clasp is put on, or how if you're wrapping a stone and stone's going to fall out within just a couple wearings, or whether this is something that is going to last, not just a day or a wearing, but years or generations.
Would you say also that you want to kind of avoid any like barbs and small things?
Very much so,
Yeah.
because if it's there, you're not going to wear it. It needs to have a smooth, finished look. It needs to not have sharp edges anywhere that could be caught on your hair or on your hand, and just cut yourself up.
Cut up your garb.
Cut up your garb. That's often an issue. You want to make sure there's consistency in the way that they're doing it throughout the piece.
Okay, so just like anything else, it needs to be quality, it needs to look pretty, it needs to not hurt you when you put it on. It needs to be functional.
Singing with or without accompaniment, period pieces, or original compositions, 5-minute time limit.
Okay, so as we were talking about earlier, if you have a poem that you're singing, that could be in poetry or it could be in singing. Regular bardic type stuff could be in singing. Again, you want to make sure that you have a copy for each judge, so at least your 5 copies. Make sure it's the 5-minute time limit.
Rose, any entry whose principal function is to benefit the club. Judged on both the category it would normally be under and the amount of service provided to the club.
Okay, so a rose is one of the big important pieces. For instance, you make a kneeling pillow because the duchy lost its kneeling pillow. And so you make a really pretty nice looking kneeling pillow. It's judged both as a passive construction and as a rose entry. How useful is it to the group? Also, what is the quality of it? We've had people make a castle that had immense use to the group. They entered it as a rose entry, and then it was also judged as. All right, so next we're going to talk about preparation for tournament day. Number 1, presentation is key. I cannot stress this enough. You want to go to, it's the difference between making something that's truly epic and something that's pretty good. You can have the same item entered, one of them you know, let's say it was, you got pumpkin chocolate chip cookies, and for one person they just took the Tupperware and they threw it on the table and they didn't even give them napkins. And the other person, they went to the DI or the local thrift store and they bought a gold plate and they bought a fake pumpkin and they got some pumpkin vines going around it and they put on there some really nice looking napkins and they made it all pretty. The difference there is presentation. When you walk up, the first initial ooh factor in the one where they did it all up nice and the one where they just threw the Tupperware on the table, it's going to be a huge difference for the judges. So the next one, dressing your items. Make sure all your items are clean, presentable, and fully finished. With sewing projects, make sure you trim all your threads. Make sure it is safe. Oh, if it is safe, iron your project. Make sure it's as clean as possible. So wash it if you can. You want it to be clean. When you bring it to the park, make sure that you protect it. Put it on a hanger. Make sure it doesn't get all wrinkled on the way here. Okay?
Something also is a lot of people like to lay their garb down. If you want it displayed nicely, you can either find something at a DI or call around because people have those dummies that you can borrow and they're very willing to let you borrow that for your display.
Right, and that's one thing that you can get from the DI again. That's a huge part of presentation. Leather projects, try to polish them up or oil them. Keep everything clean, make it all presentable, make it shiny. Make it look like armor. You know, if you bring it and it's all dirty and it's been sitting in your trunk for 3 weeks and it's rusted, you're not gonna get as high a score. So go through, make sure you bring everything up to its best possible caliber before you enter it into an arts and sciences tournament. Other projects, make sure everything is clean, keep it that way. Always bring scissors or a rag, other things that you can just do quick alterations at the park. If you get to the park and you notice, oh, I forgot to clip those strings and you don't have any scissors, you're about to be in a world of hurt. You know, if it can be put on a hanger, put it on a hanger. That's what I always say. Then 3x5 cards, the deciding factor is what I call it. Often, some people don't even do 3x5 cards, which is crazy to me. But they're really important. On your 3x5 cards, especially with your cooking entries, you're going to list all of your ingredients so that if any of the judges are allergic, they'll know that they're not supposed to judge that. obviously. You can also put in there things that you did extra. For instance, if you wove the fabric to make this quilted armor yourself, and then you dyed it yourself using ancient dyeing techniques, that's something that you want to put on your 3x5 card, because if you don't, they're going to assume that you just bought it at the store, and you're going to be done a horrendous disservice. As Julie was saying, if you bought it, you bought your cake mix at the store, as opposed to you made your own recipe, you tweaked your own recipe. Just any specific things you want to point out about it. Maybe there's something that you're really proud of that you did, like, really intricate, that might not be noticeable right away. If the judges are doing their job, that shouldn't be an issue. But you might want to point this out and to see things that you want them to know about your project specifically, that would raise or lower, hopefully raise its intricacy. Varying your categories. In the Desert Winds, the judging system we use is designed to help quality to triumph over quantity most of the time. You should attempt to spread your entries over more than one category to maximize your points.
I'm not sure if I've ever asked this before. Is there any way for more than one person to collaborate on a project and enter it into AMS?
Yes, but it's difficult.
I believe if you have to do over 50% of the work to be able to enter it. I don't think you can enter it as two people under one thing.
But, for instance,
certain exceptions do apply, especially with roses. Like if a company does something of service, like making a huge castle and donates it, that would be a rose, and the entire company can enter it.
Or, let's say that you were going to do a play and you organized a play. Maybe you could do the organizational portion of the play, or like, let's say you wrote the play, so you could enter the writing of the play, like the actual play itself, as a writing entry, and then the people who perform in the play, they could have bardic entries, so on and so forth. So there's multiple different things. It kind of depends on the project. With something like a tunic, that's going to be difficult. On the original first packet, the first document, if you're doing it online, the ANS Judging and Scoring Section 942 of the Desert Winds Corpora. For instance, you have to have at least 5 judges and no greater than 10. The autocrat cannot also be a judge, those kinds of general quick things. And then at the barony level, and baronies and shires can go down to 3 and 5. We're going to go through a judging overview. I've attached a copy of Sindari's Judging Series 100 ANS judging thing. So number 1, keep the bias out. In a perfect world, we should not know who did what we're judging. However, we don't live in a perfect world. So since we don't live in a perfect world, whether it's a newbie or veteran, friend or foe, it makes no difference. If you can't reasonably say that, please do not judge. Basically, all that means is if you feel like you can't be impartial, don't judge. Or maybe you feel like you can be impartial except for this particular section, your girlfriend made these pants or whatever. Go to the person running it. Say, hey, I don't think I can be impartial here. I watched these pants be made. I saw them from start to finish, or I helped this person make these things. I'm not going to judge this section. Know your limitations. If you're a master garber but you know nothing about needlework, this happened to me, make sure the runner of the tournament knows so they can have another judge ready to judge the categories that you're unable to give an informed score upon. If you don't know about it, then you have no business judging it, right?
Can you ask someone who does know stuff about it?
You can maybe. That's kind of going to be at your personal discretion.
That's what Matthias did with my belt. He went and asked Lochter.
You want to stay away from that.
I really don't agree with that at all. What I do, and I think I mentioned that in the series, is I say to somebody who knows what they're talking about, how would you judge this category?
Judge an item based on the finished product, not the time taken or the ability of the craftsperson. Again, you should not know who the craftsperson is, but we're not in a perfect world. So that's what we were kind of talking about earlier. Something that Amber makes a really awesome tunic. It takes her 10 hours. Fitz can make the same tunic in 2 hours, and it looks exactly the same. It does not matter. She should not get a higher score than Fitz, or Fitz should not get a higher score than her because it took more or less time. So one thing to remember, as we kind of talked about while we were doing the cards, when you're writing out your card, don't put on there how long it took you. It doesn't matter. We're judging on the finished product, not on the process. Start with kind of an average score. A 3-0. An average scoring item, as an example, is a well-constructed legal short sword. No frills, simple cover, everything's easy. It looks like they did a good job on it. Then you kind of go up from there. They put a really fancy applique cover on it. Maybe that'll add it a couple points. Maybe it turns out that the pommel is loose and it's actually unsafe, so that's going to detract points. The overall quality of the item. So you're going to go with a 3-0 is your base, kind of a C grade. Is this item a solid item? And then you want to kind of go up or lower depending on the specific things that you see in the item. Spend a lot of time, scrutinize the item with a fine-toothed comb.
Turn it inside out.
Turn it inside out, especially with garb entries. Turn it inside out. Get to everything you can see. If it's a shield and it's got a cover on it, take the shield cover off if you can. See what it looks like on the back.
Don't be afraid to pick it up. I've seen judges just look at an item, move it a little bit, and then go on to the next item. Pick it up, put it on your arm, see how it feels.
Yeah, find somebody to wear it. If you happen to know who it was made for, and it's not the artisan, go have them put it on. Have them see how it fits. Or someone of a similar size. See how it fits. Don't compare items in the tournament. So basically, this sword and that sword should be judged as two completely different items. Regardless of that sword's better than that sword, it doesn't matter. You're judging that item, not that item against that item. You want to stay away from, well, I could make that and it's not that hard. You want to go with, overall, in general, how difficult is this item? Because what's easy for you might not be easy for them, and then you'll end up giving them an askew score. Look at the item with fresh eyes, even if you've seen it before, like if you saw it on the field. A lot of times artisans, and we talked about this just barely, they will dress up their items, they'll make them prettier, they'll fix things that happened. Maybe the last time you saw it, there was a big rip in it, and now there's not. If you don't even look for that rip, then it's not gonna, and you're just gonna assume that the rip is there. Maybe they fixed it. Maybe they completely fixed it. You need to look at the item as if it was the first time you'd ever seen the item. Big one for me, always provide constructive feedback. Simply giving the entrant a 2.0 on this item leaves them zero ability to improve on that item. You need to try and say specifically good things about it, specifically bad things about it. One good thing, I always try to do one good thing, one bad thing, one thing I would have done differently.
This way the person can come back with that going, oh, now I know how I can get a better score next time.
Right. So always give feedback and try to be constructive. Don't try to tear somebody down and make them not want to play. Excuse me. And this is just a Desert Winds thing. It's not at all the places thing. Judging and determining the overall score. So you're going to refer to another wonderful document written by Dame Sindar. The one that says Dear Populace, it is the Desert Winds overall scoring sheet. But we're going to go over some basic things and kind of explain basically how it works here. Varying categories. Things to remember, vary your categories. You get all the points for only your highest scoring item in each category. And when I say all the points, I mean the points above 3.0. That was poorly worded. And the points above 3.0 in each category that you entered. If all of your items are in the same category, you only gain full points for the best item in that category. So if you enter
5 pieces of
field garb, you're only going to get the points for the best piece of field garb. That may help you, that may hurt you. If you make a truly immaculate piece of field garb and you get a 5.0 on it, then you'll get your basic 3.0 you'll get a 5.0 as your average, and then you'll get 2 extra bonus points, and then overall you'll be at a 5.0. That doesn't happen, or at least not normally, and even then most of the time people average above 5.0. So you want to make sure that you do it in separate categories. If you're going to be competitive. And I gave kind of an example. Let's say that you entered a pair of bracers that got a 3.70, and you entered a field tunic that got 3.20. So your bonus points would be 0.70 for your bracers and 0.20 for your tunic, because they're in separate categories. Everybody following so far? So they're the best items that you entered in those two categories, And then above 3.0, you take the extra points above 3.0, and those are your bonus points. And then you're going to add it to your next score, which is the overall quality of your body of work. Yeah.
Do you subtract points for bonus for items less than 3.0?
No.
No? Okay.
So, but that actually comes out in the quality, though. So you want to make sure that all of your items are at least 3.0. When I enter things, I don't enter anything that I don't think would get a 3.8 or better. Make sure all of your work is at a particular level. Having many high-end items can hurt you with low-end items, bringing them down. So you have, all of these 3.7, 3.8, 3.9, 4.0 items, and then you have just as many items that get a 2.0. All of your items are going to be averaged. All your scores are going to be averaged. So you're going to add them all up and then divide them by how many items there were entered. So if you have, for instance, I have, using the same one as we had before, the bracers for 3.70, the field guard scoring 3.2, and a drawing in 2D art that scored 2.9, then you're going to add all those together, and the total is 9.8, and then you're going to divide it by how many were entered. That's 3, so that gives you 3.26. So that's your average score. And then you're going to add to that your bonus points from before. So you're going to add your 3.26 to 0.90. That gives you a score of 4.166, which is going to be your overall score, your overall placement. So obviously you guys can kind of see how that factors in. Having the general quality of all of your work as opposed to having some really good stuff and some really bad stuff. It's better to not enter it if it's not going to score well.
The category average and averaging in the point system is specifically for Dragon Master overall winner and Crown Qual overall winner. That's all it does. So you're certainly welcome to enter in as many items as you wish if you are looking for items for consideration as individual items. But if you're trying to win overall Dragon Master, you don't want to enter in 5 garb, 5 baking items. You don't want to do that. But if you want to have 5 baking items and you think they're all really good items, go for it. Because then the monarch or the regent is going to look at those scores and award individually as well.
Because we're kind of looking at this from a perspective of how can I be better at ANS and in tournaments? How can I place higher in ANS tournaments as opposed to getting awards and so on and so forth? Does anybody have any questions? No? Okay.
Say entering a single item into multiple categories. How is that scored differently? Or is it scored differently at all?
Depending on the category you entered it into.
Like Classy Dip Shield, for example. You've got it into, you can enter it into at least the shield construction.
Right.
You can usually do it into unique weapon. And maybe even the 3D art if you've taken the time to make it pop.
Right.
So got
you
one
would actually
item in three categories.
So the difference is you're not going to enter one item into 3 different categories in one tournament. Okay? You're going to pick which category it will score best in. So each category has its list of things that you're going to its list of things that it's judged on. So for instance, your Plastic Dip Shield will do immensely better in shield construction than it would do in 3D art, let's say. Because as a shield, it's judged on, construction, legality, safety, and then in 3D art, it's solely based on how pretty is this as a sculpture. Would you put this in a museum? You wouldn't put a Plastic Dip Shield in a museum because that's not. Though it looks really cool and really pretty, that may not be something that's art. Does that make sense?
Okay.
So though it will fit in that category, that doesn't necessarily mean that everything should be put into all of those categories. But it's useful to know when you're qualing. All of this stuff is available on the Desert Winds Yahoo group.
Under the files
section, all of these documents. I referenced some other documents there as well.